This is the rocket tube perimeter alarm. I'm going to show you how it works and then show you how to make it. So it's essentially a ground stake. Well, it's a pipe of varying thicknesses. This one contains a small little bottle rocket. I'm going to jam that in the ground here. I'll do this one right next to it, but we'll do them one at a time. All right, I'll tie this. All right, here's the little one. All right, that one worked. There's this one. Oh, wow. Dude, that one was fucking awesome. All right, that worked really well. Oh, it went right through there. All right, well, that's a demonstration. I'll show you how to make it. So, let's see. Bottle rockets. You'll need some sandpaper. You'll need some pipe. And a pull cord ignition kit, which is actually a pull wire ignition kit, I suppose. In this sense, I have upgraded these, and I'll go into that later. But you also need a little bit of tape, and I guess that's it. Super glue and activator, and then some random tools. So I'm gonna start with cutting this biatch. The first thing we can do is cut a 45 or steeper angle on the bottom, and then the same on the top. So the length of this is basically determined by, the length of the bottle rocket here. I don't know if you can see that, probably not, but I'm holding up a bottle rocket, and then I'm also adding a little bit. Oh yeah, you definitely can't see that. This thing's like 10 feet long. You also want to add whatever depth you want to stake it into the ground. So, and then a little bit of leeway. So I'm just going to go like to here. So let me see what that length is. It's like 32 inches. So I'm going to put this in a vise and cut it. Close quarters. Got my propane tank here. It's always good to do pyrotechnics right next to a propane tank. So this is a little steeper. This is a little steeper than a 45-degree angle. I'm just using a fine tooth hacksaw blade here. Alright, that is the end going into the ground. And then this will be the end. Oops, just hit my mic. This will be the end that is the end of the tube. And I'll explain to you why this needs to also be at an angle, a steep angle if possible. Alright. This is some sandpaper. This is for plumbers, this kind. It's a screen, but it equates to about 120 grit. It doesn't really matter. Whatever is most effective. Just clean off these burrs. Okay, now this part is interesting. Okay, so at first I was doing tests, or you know what I'll say? If you noticed in the intro, there was a slight delay between the initiation of that whistle and the ejection from the tube. It almost seems like the audio was off sync, but that was actually the delay was caused by it was held up, the bottle rocket was held up by the flat foil, right? And I found that cutting the top at a slant and securing the foil at an angle actually makes it easier for the rocket to puncture. And here's some information from Grok. I didn't know if that was a well-known effect or whatever. What is it called? Projectile penetration, pressure distribution, contact area, foil deformation. Is there a difference in force? Yes, there is likely a difference in the force required to puncture the foil between the two tube configurations. Straight cut tube. The rocket impacts the foil head-on, distributing the force more evenly across the foil. This may require a higher force to puncture because the foil must stretch and tear over a larger area. A slant cut tube. The rocket likely contacts the foil at an angle, concentrating force on a smaller area and introducing shear stress. This typically reduces the force needed to puncture, as shear failure often occurs at lower forces than tensile failure. That is kind of interesting. Wow. Anyway, so the bottle rockets do not actually really have all that much force, you know? They're not like model rocket engines. I have played with model rocket engines and just putting them on sticks, you know, trying to make bottle rockets out of them. It is not pretty. One thing about bottle rockets is that you'll notice there's some paper overhanging the bottom of this cylinder here, right? And that essentially acts as, what is that called? There's a nozzle, rocket engine projection. There's a nozzle, and then there's a bell. Is it called a bell? No, it's part of the nozzle, that outer shell. So this extra paper actually directs some of that outgoing force. So it is a necessary component. I skimmed this rocket down a bit, shaved it down, this one, and I added that extra paper, basically, just to give it a little bit more forward thrust. It's a directional thrust thing. Okay, top and bottom. This is the top. What I'm going to do is measure down to where I need to drill this hole. So this is the bottom of the foil. We want to give it a little bit of room to accelerate. And we want the fuse to be ignited here. So let me see here. Well, I don't have I'll just... Here's some... Alright, so we want the ignition to occur here. I saw the funniest DeWalt reel on Instagram today. Here it is.
Baby girl, let me see you do your dance, let me see you twirl. Shake an ass in the club with your homegirls. Take a pic for the gram, show the whole world.
Okay, so this is the top, and what we're going to do is drill a hole at this depth, you know, at the intuitive location of the fuse here, giving it a little bit of room to accelerate up the tube. So I'm going to drill, you want to drill at the apex of this cut here. You want to stay in line with that, and I'll explain why in a minute. Damn! Oh my god. What is this? This is the dullest drill bit I've ever seen in my life. Jeez, dude. That was fucking embarrassing. It was like it was drilling through metal. Alright, so this is the fuse hole. And what we're going to do is, now we're at the point where we can install the igniter, okay? And I'm just going to review these these are wire pull igniters. I did make a video on it, although I did find a better way to do it. So I'm going to just demonstrate that. Alright, so I got the ignition cups. So all of this stuff is in this kit. These kits now have an upgraded ignition formula, an upgraded binder. It's a Parlon-based binder. There's some sandpaper and 24 gauge wire, stainless steel wire. So let's start with the wire. This is, like I said, 24 gauge. Now, if you're making these igniters for like a smoke device, do not make it this long. It only needs like 7 inches or so. Alright, so what we do is we start with this. So approximately, I don't know, maybe that's 2 feet is pretty long, but you'll see why it's so long in a sec. Alright, so what we do is we abrade this wire. I turn it at this angle here. It's like at 90 degrees or so. Relative to this little dangly thing. I do that so that the striations or the abrasions on the wire are lateral, or at least diagonal. It doesn't really create any additional friction if it's parallel to the direction of pull. So anyway, we do those lateral striations. Then we just wrap it around a small dowel or paintbrush or whatever, 5 times or so. And then we compress the coil. Now we have this coil. We heat it up and then let it cool down to room temperature. I think somebody left a comment on one of my videos about the difference between annealing and what's it called? Quenching? Is it called quenching when you dip it into water? Anyway, what we want is for it to just anneal, and in that position. It'll add a little bit of rigidity. As long as it cools slowly, it will not be brittle. Well, it won't be brittle beyond whatever. All right, so we just anneal that, and then we make a little bit of striker mix. This is Parlon. It is about 6% Parlon, which is a chlorinated rubber powder, in a combination of 70% acetone, 30% methyl ethyl ketone, MEK. You can use clear Elmer's school glue. That is what I've always used. It's what's always come in the kits. I just was playing with some weird binders and I made a shitload of this stuff, and it's a great binder, and it dries very rapidly because it's acetone based. I added the methyl ethyl ketone just to extend the dry time because, acetone evaporates, like, if you look at it wrong. It evaporates rapidly, so... Alright, so here's our little striker composition mix. I'm just doing a small amount to demonstrate. I'll do that with this. This striker composition is a mix of 1:1:1 red phosphorus, sulfur, and ground glass. There you go. So, this will dry pretty fast. Now we can puncture the cup. So we just poke a very small hole in the center of this, like just enough to get through. We thread this 24 gauge wire. We do not pull it all the way down yet. And then we take this ignition composition. Alright, let's see here. So now, just dump this in here. Now listen, this is... Alright, so I'm dumping a lot in here. But then we clear it out, okay? This cup should be almost empty. Like, this should be a little thicker. Honestly, this should be thicker. The composition here, I added too much Parlon, or too much solvent. Yeah, this is about good. This will shrink when it dries. And then we embed this coil like that. Let this dry, and this is enough. If you add too much ignition mix, then it will just blow up like a firecracker. And these are all near, well, usually they're on smoke grenades or something, and they're in your hand, so obvious safety issues there. So the reason that this is drilled, now that we have this igniter, the reason that this is drilled on the same side as the apex of this cut is because we want the rocket to be aligned. We don't want it doesn't need to be aligned with a stick on this side, but it does need to, we want it to be banking on this side of the of the tube. Just drill this on the same side as the apex of this. Now, what we do, we take the dried up cup here, and we take a piece of tape. This is packaging tape, or this is Titan RAM board tape for like putting down this floor protection. Moving right along. We don't want it secured to the stick. We just want it like this. So this guy, this is way too long. Really? Anytime I shoot videos without a script, it's actually more work because it takes longer to edit. So maybe I'm stupid. I'm just trying to cut corners and be fast, and it always bites me in the ass. All right, cool. So I mean, this is reasonably adhered here. All right, so this igniter is secured to the fuse. Hey, what are you little whippersnappers doing out there? Now we put the end of this in here. Here we go. All right. I'm going to go out there and be like, hey, what are you doing, you little whippersnappers? All right, so now we just thread this in. Oh, damn. Thread this in. So the resistance is on the fuse and the igniter, right? That's pushing against this wall. By the time the rocket generates thrust, the fuse is going to be severed. So it does not matter. Now we pull this down and continue to guide it until we hit the edge of that cup right there. And I'm going to trim this down now because this is ridiculous. Are you serious? And then I'm going to add I'll add a loop. This is a large loop. Alright, I gotta put the cap on here. I'm gonna wrap this around and twist it. Alright, so that's got the loop, and now we put this foil over. This is very delicate, and you have to be careful when you push this stake into the ground. Hey, you whippersnapper, shut up. Actually, I should let the children play because at least they're outside and not glued to their phones like all you guys are, and me all the time. Alright, so what I'm doing here is... Actually, you know what? Yeah, I'm just going to apply this to the outside of this opening to avoid, when I was testing this idea, oh geez, I got some glue stuck on the inside edge of the tube, and that actually impeded the flight. It prevented the rocket from exiting the tube. Alright, cool. So this is secured. Now this is waterproof too. Well, no, not so now I add some silicone here. I'm actually going to do that because I want this to be done, like and ready to, place. But it's important that these things are waterproof. So if you want to speed up the rate that this, if you want to speed up the rate that this cures, you can add either glycerin and a few drops of water, or cornstarch and a small amount of cornstarch and a couple of drops of water. Mix it up in a little thing. Mix it up in a little cup, and then this I do not need to go crazy here. All right, so this is now waterproof, and I'm going to trim this back here. And that is cleaned up a bit. All right. Now we need to cover so this can either be filled with a big old blob of epoxy, of thickened epoxy, or, water weld, JB Quick Weld or JB Weld, water weld, or I'm going to just use whatever's lying around here, which is going to be some fiberglass mesh tape. Hear me out first. It's just going to be a matrix for glue. So I'll apply this like that. And then this around here. Great. Now we need to, so this is very strong. It won't withstand a metal puncture, but it will withstand soil being displaced as you shove it into the ground. Now we're going to camouflage this biatch. All right, now I scuff it for the camera. In reality, it doesn't really matter, because no matter what you do, the paint's gonna peel off when you shove it into the ground. You know what I mean? Like, it's almost futile. If you have adhesion promoter, that's technically the right way to do it with PVC. I'm not gonna paint the bottom. When I spray, I go in the direction of the leaves. You see what I did. I'm just taking a leaf that I found growing on the, this is flat deep forest green. And you basically just want to break any defined borders, like this, like that's a defined edge. Oh, this is not. Oh, well, this is all effed up. All right, good enough for government work. That's all right. It's okay. Whatever. All right, let that dry, and then we'll go test this bad boy out. All right, here it is. So I set out a line here. Let me see if I can find it. Okay, here it is. All right. I'm just gonna stake this into the ground. So the good thing about these is they're super cheap. Made, you've seen what they're made out of. Bottle rockets are cheap. PVC pipe is cheap. Pull cord igniter is cheap. It's $1 per igniter if you think about it. These can, stay out in the weather, and you can, a perimeter alarm, one single tripwire does not constitute a perimeter. You know what I mean? So these allow you to make a large radius, you know, and they also denote, they locate, right? So you trigger a tripwire, and if you're using a 209 primer, like you'll hear it, but you won't know where it came from. The cool thing about bottle rockets is they locate where the perimeter was breached or where the witch alarm was set off. So anyway, I'm just gonna put this in the ground. I'm gonna put this on a tripod because that was not pretty the last time I tried this. Do not put your face in front of it like I just did. All right, that's pretty adequate. Where's this wire? This line. Here it is. So I hear a lot of different stuff about the height of tripwires. You know, some people say like almost chest height. Some people say knee height. All right, so I'm gonna take this off the gimbal because I don't think I can track fast enough with that. I think there's gonna be a lag. So I'll do this by hand. I apologize for the shakiness of it. But, all right, so I'll just, let's see. That was cool, dude. Oh, that was cool.
Okay, goodbye. I love you.